It is so hot in here. Like, I am literally dabbing sweat with a Post-it note because there is no napkins. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's your resident internet psychic medium and spiritual advisor, Mystic Rain, and today I'm going to be answering all of your questions. So a few weeks ago, I asked you all through a communication post whether or not you had any questions for me that was specifically related to tarot, and you guys submitted some really good questions, and so I'm just going to answer it. I don't think this video is going to be triggering, so no spirit disclaimer today. However, if you do get triggered, sorry, not sorry. First question: how to find the right tarot reader? I love this question. No one has actually ever asked me that before. The right tarot reader for you is all about energy. It's an energetic connection. Either you're feeling it or you're not feeling it. So when you are searching for a reader, what you need to do is have a picture of the face. All readers should have a picture of their face. If you find a reader that doesn't have a picture of their face, then I would say that that's probably not the best one to go to. You're going to find the face and you're going to figure out how you feel about that face. Does the face make you feel kind of uneasy, maybe intimidated, a little afraid, kind of paranoid? If you feel anything sort of negative or something that you can't quite put your finger on, but it's rubbing you the wrong way, that's not the person you want. What you want is a feeling of, oh, that person can answer my question. When you're looking at the faces, you'll feel, some of them may feel neutral, like you're like, don't really like gravitate towards them, but I'm not totally turned off by them. You want to keep going until you find a face that you're actually turned on by. And it's just an energetic thing. You may feel like it feels kind of like they would be friendly, or maybe they would be your friend. The energy will feel open and inviting towards you. And you don't need to have any form of intuitive or psychic ability in order to be able to do this. It's the same way you meet somebody for the first time and you have the ability to say, I just don't have a good feeling about that person. It's the same thing. And so you want to look at the face, right? Now, where should you go to find them? I would highly, damn, Duchess, you all right? I would recommend going to a metaphysical bookstore when you're trying someone out for the first time. And I'm talking like a metaphysical bookstore that's owned and operated by an old haggard woman that looks like she's been through some things. A store that when you walk through it for the first time, the energy has a palpable shift in it. You don't know quite what it is, but it just feels a little different. Typically, in medical bookstores that are legit, the energy should actually feel heavier. It should feel weightier in there as opposed to feeling lighter. I would go to one of those. They always have a list of psychics and practitioners, and that list always has faces on it, and you will go to the list and you will look at the face and you would just pick the face where you feel like you're just drawn to that person, and that's it. Don't overthink it. The reason why I would suggest this way is because those metaphysical bookstores have audition processes. You can't just be a psychic or a reader or a practitioner in this store. You have to be worth something. You have to be kind of good, right? And every store's process is a little bit different, right? And I live in Atlanta, and so there's two main stores that we have, one called Phoenix and Dragon, one called the Inner Space, and I'm saying this just in case you guys, some of you live in Atlanta or are familiar with it. With the Phoenix and Dragon, last time I checked, the way they do their audition process is you actually have to do a reading for the owner themselves. The owner is very spiritually inclined, and so they have an ability to see whether or not you're full of shit or not. The one for Inner Space, the way you become a practitioner there, again, it's an interview process. However, you have to go through a psychic fair. It's called a New Talent Fair. And you sign up. There's like an orientation. They tell you everything that's expected of you. You show up on this day for your slot for the fair. It's usually an 8-hour slot. And people can come and book a time with you for the super, super low, for like the discount. You can get a reading for like $10. And these people are given a rubric before they go in, and they actually have to rate you in certain areas. And you have to get a 90% or better in order to be admitted into the roster of psychics that they actually have. And so that one has the public evaluating you. That is why I would actually recommend doing it that way. Not to toot my own horn or anything, but I actually used to be one of the psychics for the inner space, and I was an all-star. I was one of the most requested. So the next question is, who is spirit, and do we need to call upon them while reading our cards? How do we ensure it's a positive spirit? I don't think I have a spirit guide, so I'm just awkwardly shuffling and looking at cards when attempting to do a tarot reading. Great question. No one really asks this one as well. When I first started, I wanted to know who was I working with. Like, what is this? I keep hearing about spirit. I don't know. Who is this little man in the class, right? Spirit is an umbrella term used to describe any energy, essence, or being that is on a different plane or not of this dimension. When people say spirit, they're typically talking about something different, but they are referencing whatever or whoever is in the ethers that they're working with. For some people, when they say spirit, they are actually talking about God. For some people, when they say spirit, they're talking about the universe. For some people, they're talking about angels or guardian angels. Some people are talking about deities. Some people are talking about their own personal spirit guide. Some people are talking about their ancestors. So spirit is just a catch-all term for whatever it is that you're dealing with. If you just want to work with the universe, which would mean working with the energies of the universe, not necessarily working with the being in the universe, people say that that's spirit too. It's okay that you don't think that you have a spirit guide. I would wager a bet and say that you probably do. You just haven't met them yet, or you haven't been able to perceive them at the moment. I would also kind of suspect that perhaps you've been a little bit closed off from it, from being a little bit concerned about specifically what is on the other side that you may particularly be working with. And if that's the case, no judgment. I've been there myself, right? But what you want to do when it comes to spirit, first choose whether or not you actually want to work with spirit when it comes to tarot reading. Not every tarot reader works with spirit, because not every tarot reader is a psychic and not every tarot reader is a medium. Some tarot readers are just strictly tarot readers. They know the card interpretations, and that's all they're recalling is the meaning, the actual meaning of the cards themselves. They're not recalling from anywhere else. Some people just use their higher guidance or their own personal wisdom or their own personal knowing when working with the cards. They're not actually working with any other energy. So first decide what kind of tarot reader do you want to be. Do you want to work with them? You don't have to if you don't want to. But if you do want to and you're concerned about what kind of spirit it is or what it's going to look like, what you will do is make a contract. So for those of you that haven't seen that video, because it was a few years ago at this point, I'm going to say it again. You can make a contract with spirit. Working with spirit is exactly the way it sounds. It is working with spirit. It's an agreement back and forth. Spirit has conditions. You have conditions, right? The beautiful thing about working with spirit here is that because this is your plane, this is your dimension, your rules trump how they behave here, right? So if you feel like this is something that you want to do, get yourself a piece of paper and a pen and have a quiet moment with yourself and really reflect on how you would want that relationship to look and what you specifically would want to work with them on. Do you only want to work with them on tarot reading? Do you want to work with them as a medium? If you are a medium, right? Do you want to be someone that has the ability to relay messages? Do you want to be someone who is channeling? Do you want them to be able to use you to push messages out? Or do you want them to simply relay messages to you and then you speak them yourself, right? Not everyone wants to be used, right, as like a vessel, right? Some people just want you to just give it to me and then I'll tell you what they said, right? And then also think about, do you want to hear them? Are you comfortable with that? Do you want to see them? Are you comfortable with that? How do you want the information to get to you? You're going to sit there and you're going to think about all those things, and then you're going to write it down on a piece of paper, and that forms your contract. You can sign it if you want, if you feel like you need to do that. You can read it out loud if you feel like that's the only way that they need to hear, that they can hear from you. But the point is, you are deciding the terms and the conditions of how they work with you. For example, when it comes to me, some of my terms, one is that before I come across someone that was meant to meet me, see me, hear something that I'm supposed to be saying, before that happens, I need to be told. And so before, sometimes I go to events, particularly if it's like a venue with a lot of people, before I'll walk out the door, I'll hear this faint note, like voice, and it'll say like 3. And I know, okay, there's 3 people in that place that need to hear from me before I go, right? I also have an agreement where I do not want to see you. I don't do ghosts. I don't do apparitions. I just don't. That shit scares the shit. I'm like, how? I don't know how people do it. It scares the shit out of me. I can't do that. Are you kidding me? No ghost. I also have this irrational fear that I will wake up in the middle of the night and be thirsty and like go to the kitchen for water, and there will be a ghost in my kitchen. So another one of my rules, I don't want you in my kitchen. I don't want you in my living room. I don't want to wake up in the middle of the night and you're standing at the foot of my bed. I don't want you in my house. That's rude, okay? Don't show up in my house. That's my rule. If you want to talk to me, I need you to just talk to me. I'm very clairaudient. I can hear you just fine. Just talk to me normally, but don't show up in my house. I just don't like it. So the next question is, how can we trust what comes through when we read tarot cards? Sometimes 2 people may come up with different interpretations for a single person. This happens. You're correct. The reason why sometimes the interpretations can be different is because everyone has a different perspective, everyone has a different lens, and everyone's perspective is shaped by their experience. So for example, I have a lot of grief experience in my life. The majority of my family has passed away. And so when I'm reading for somebody, I have an ability to pick up on grief in different areas, even when it's underlying, even when it's a situation where they maybe have not accepted their current situation, I can still perceive grief. People who don't have that experience may not be able to be as sensitive to it as I am. And so it may not be something that they pick up on. They may be picking up on things that they are more aware of, right? Based off of their experiences. One thing that you have to remember is that humans are multifaceted and we're very dynamic. And also 2 things can be true at the same time. Just because you picked up on one thing and somebody else picked up another thing does not mean that one of you are wrong. It just means that you just picked up on different energy streams, and that's okay. It also has to do too with how the person learned how to read tarot, whether or not that person learned traditional tarot or if they learned intuitive tarot. Traditional tarot is tarot based off of the traditional meaning of the cards, right? It's based off of what the card's original intent was back when it was originally completed back in the 1900s, right? The beginning of the 1901 or something like that. It's back with those particular meanings where that's traditional tarot, people that learn that meaning. Then there's some people that learn it through intuition, intuitive tarot reading, where they are taught to look at a picture and then what does it feel like, right? When you look at this picture of a sun, what does it make you feel? And they're taught that way. And the difference between the 2 is that, one, the traditional way is what it was originally meant to say, but everyone has different meanings for things when it's intuitive. Somebody can look at the sun and for them, that means happy. Someone else can look at the sun and for them, that means successful, right? And so when you're intuitive tarot reading, typically what happens is that the person assigns a meaning to a different symbol in the card or a different card itself. There is no one way of reading that is better than the other. As long as you have the ability to read and it helps somebody else, that means you did your job, right? I learned the traditional way because when I first started learning how to read, my intuition and stuff was not kicked in. I could not tell you what I felt because I didn't know what I was supposed to feel. Not to mention the fact that I'm heavily logical. You know, I've got a Gemini brain, right? Like I'm just not, I'm not a water sign, okay? So it just didn't work out for me. I had to learn the original meanings and the original intent behind the card purposes. But that is why you get 2 different meanings. It doesn't mean that one is wrong and one is right. 2 things can be right at the same time. The next question is, do you read reverse cards or can you do a reading without them? If so, how? Can I read reversals? Yes. Do I deliberately read them? No. I actually carry a very controversial opinion in the tarot community. I do not think that people should be taught reversals when they are first learning how to read the card. One, you're already overwhelmed because there's too many things to remember. And then when you start focusing on reversals, which was not the original intent of the card in the beginning, then you just start adding confusion to whatever it is that you're doing. Also, when you know the card's meaning inside and out, the reversal just comes to you. You don't actually have to study it. If you need to study reversed meanings, it means that you probably don't know the card's original meaning and intent to begin with, because the reversal is actually just a natural byproduct of its original meaning. However, rule of thumb is, if it's really important for you to read a reversal, when it comes out reversed, it is the shadow aspect of the card, not the reverse meaning or the opposite meaning, but the shadowy aspect of it. So I want to give an example. Let's do the devil card. For those of you that don't do tarot reading and don't know what I'm talking about, just hang in there with me, okay? Actually, don't hang in there, because you probably wouldn't have clicked on this video if that was you. Anyway, so for the devil card, a lot of the times that can talk about you are the devil, right? And the devil card is fascinating because whenever it comes out and there's people that don't read tarot and you're reading for someone and they see it, they're scared shitless. I find that entertaining every single time. But typically what it means is that you are your own devil. You are your own worst enemy. It could mean things like addiction. It could mean giving into temptation. Whatever it is, you're doing something that's causing you to be the own devil in your life. It could be sabotage, self-sabotage, right? So if this comes out, but it's reversed, it's the shadow aspect of it. The shadow aspect of something like that would be someone that's not allowing themselves to partake in the pleasures of life. Someone that is withholding themselves from being happy or joyous or experiencing things that they may find exciting. It's the shadow aspect. It's not necessarily the opposite. Now, the other reason why I don't really agree with reading reversals is because I've noticed over the years that when people are doing reversals, sometimes when they pull cards out, a lot of the times it's like half the cards that come out, or like all of them. And when I look at that, I'm like, babe, your deck is upside down. Like, flip it over. Like, if you are reading and the majority of the cards are coming up reversed, it's upside down. The deck is upside down. So I don't like it. I just don't think that it's necessary. You can be an incredibly good reader with never learning reversals, because if you really truly know what you're doing, the reversals is a natural thing that comes to you. Now, what I do is note them. So when I'm doing a reading, and let's say one comes out, a card comes out and it is flipped and it is reversed, specifically for me, because I don't intentionally read reversals, I will make a note of that. I will flip the card back around and put it down. I won't leave it in the reverse position, but because I know I intentionally don't read reversals, when I do see one, I'm more aware of that. And then I don't focus on it, but I wait to see what comes out in the reading, and then I'll eventually verify whether or not that's actually something that needs to be addressed, or if the card, in fact, was just upside down. So the next question, what is the process of charging your deck cards? So what you're really trying to do is infuse it with energy, preferably either your energy or energy that you want to be working with. I feel like I need examples. 1 second. So sometimes what a lot of people do to charge it is really just hold it. Because it's your energy, so they kind of just hold on to it. I've heard of people stuffing it in their bra. I've also heard of people putting it under their pillow at night. I used to do that. I used to put it under my pillow at night. But you're just infusing it with energy that you want. Another popular way to charge your deck is by leaving a crystal on it. But pick a crystal that actually serves the function of what it is you're trying to accomplish when you're reading. So for example, me, I use a labradorite right on top, because a labradorite is good for psychic ability and perceiving, right? Some people like to put a clear quartz on it because it keeps the deck clean energetically. So just pick the crystal that you feel like has the purpose that you want it to serve, right? For those of you that are like, I don't really have any crystals, I don't really know, like, how do I pick a crystal? What I would suggest is go to a store that sells crystals. And prior to going to that store, don't look up crystals. Don't look up crystals. Don't look up meanings. Just go to the store and you will browse the crystals and you will just buy the one that you feel the most drawn to. It doesn't matter the size, it doesn't matter the color, it doesn't matter what it is. And when you're at the shop, don't even bother asking the people what it is. Just get the one that you're drawn to, come home and then look it up. And you will see 99.9% of the time, the one that you're drawn to is the one that you needed to have for whatever it is that you're going through. You can use that one, put that baby on top. How long do you put it on top? Until you feel like it's done, really. I mean, there's no rule on it until you get sick of looking at it, really. The next question is asking about cleansing and purifying the cards. Is there a way to cleanse and purify the cards? Yes, there is. So when you're cleansing or purifying, remember that you're wiping the energy. It's like getting a clean slate, like taking an eraser and wiping the write-off board, right? You're just clearing the energy completely out. So sometimes once you cleanse, you may have to actually recharge it depending on specifically how long you cleanse it for. The easiest way is to get yourself a sage bundle and light that bitch on fire. And then do one of these motions, okay? And then do it around the card itself. So you're gonna do it like this. I, oddly enough, don't have sage in the house right now because after I moved, I don't know where I put anything. So I have an incense stick. You could do it in the incense too. You want the smoke, you don't want the stick. Just like with sage, you want the smoke, you don't want the stick. You're gonna light it on fire, okay? You're gonna wait until it smokes and you're gonna circle that baby, okay? And that is the easiest way to purify a deck. It's actually one of the easiest ways to purify anything, really. You can do that with your crystals. If you're trying to figure out how to cleanse your crystals, you can do it with your house, right? Lights and sage, and then specifically in the corners. Energy has a tendency to get stuck in the corners of rooms because there's just nowhere else for it to go. So it's flowing, having a great time, and then it hits a corner and it can't back up, right? And so energy has a tendency to get concentrated in the corners, gets the smoke, and just stand there with the sage stick. Like this. Next question. It's two parts. So one, what do I do with my tarot deck when a card goes missing? My first tarot deck was given to me by a family member, but one of the cards went missing. 4 years later, I still haven't found the missing card. And then two, how to really disconnect with the querent after you finish giving them a reading or ways to disconnect your energy from theirs. So for the first one, when it comes to what to do about the missing card, babes, you're going to have to buy another deck. I don't know what to tell you. Buy another deck, buy a duplicate of the deck, take the card that you're missing, and then add it to the deck. If it's a situation where the deck that you have is out of print, the only other thing that you can really do is go on eBay and see if somebody is selling their version. But when you want to try to complete a deck, you always just have to buy a new card and then add it in. Now, some people don't really like to do that because it's missing the flair, it's missing the antique. Maybe the deck you have is a little bit withered and it flews with your energy, and then when you get this fresh deck, it's starchy, and so sometimes it doesn't feel good. And so what I have found, you can actually age a deck with a nail file. And again, I don't actually know if this is your situation, but for everybody else that's watching, like this deck is actually brand new. It's a brand new deck. Go figure, right? It was too starchy for me. I didn't like it. So I took the card and I took a file and I was like, and then now it looks weathered. I'm actually very proud of this. But babe, the only thing you can do is you can only replace it. That's it. There's nothing, like, it's not going to come back to you. I mean, I know it's like a magical moment and everything like that, but it's not. I mean, honey, it's card stock, you know? Like, it doesn't have like a spirit on its own. It's not going to like reappear. If it's gone, babes, it's just gone. You're just going to have to replace it or replace a deck. And if it's just like an heirloom type of thing and it truly is out of print and you just cannot find it, you can get a blank card, write the name of what you're missing, shove it in the deck, and just sort of keep on moving. It's not uncommon to lose a card in the deck. I've lost plenty of cards in the deck. The way I have justified it to my brain on account of laziness is, Spirit said that one wasn't important. And then number two, how to disconnect from a querent when you're finished giving them energy, or disconnecting your energy from theirs. This is just will. You just have to have the will to just not be interested anymore. You just have to literally have the will and just say out loud, okay, I'm done. It's will and intention. Everything about metaphysics is will and intention. If you don't want to be connected, then simply don't be connected. There's not like a magical reading from it. You also have to you have to, when reading, recognize that you are the observer. That's it. You're not there to live that person's life for them. You may be an empath. You may have the ability to empathize. You may have the ability to feel what they're feeling. But even through all of that, you're simply observing their feelings. They don't belong to you. They are not your feelings. So from now on, when you are reading for someone, read from the perspective of an observer. It is not your job to hop in bed with them. And then if you look at it from that perspective, you don't actually really need to disconnect because you were not connected in the first place. People that have to disconnect, that means somewhere along the way you infused your energy into theirs, and you don't really have to do that. And a lot of our empaths have a tendency to do that. I just feel what you're feeling. I just get it. Ma'am, I'm gonna need you to come back. I'm gonna need you to come back. That's not your journey. It wasn't meant for you. It wasn't meant for you to feel. The reason why you're an empath and you have the ability to empathize is so you have the ability to assist other people on their journey. Because if you don't understand how they got to where they got, then you can't get them to where it is that they're going. But it is not your job to feel it for them. So from now on, you are just the observer. Next question is, what are some good ways to reconnect with tarot during a slump? Slumps happen. It's very normal. I have slumps all the time. I have said before, and I will say it again, I regularly break up with spirit because they get on my nerves and I just don't want to do it anymore. And sometimes, honestly, I just don't feel like being helpful. And so I choose sometimes not to be, right? Tarot's the same thing. Tarot, for a lot of people too, is also a hobby. And sometimes when we do our hobbies too much, they make us bored. And it doesn't mean that you don't like the hobby, you're just bored for that moment, right? For some people, they're still studying tarot. And when you study it too much, it becomes a boring subject. And so you have to step away from it. Slumps are super normal and super common. What I would say is just respect your slump. Don't fight the slump. And the reason why I wouldn't fight the slump is because tarot there's so much of it that's energetic. And so it may not be a tarot slump, it could be an energetic slump, and your body just may need to recharge. And charging times are different for everybody. Some people can recharge in a day, some people need months, some people need years. So just respect where your body is. You'll go back to tarot, it'll be waiting for you. The deck isn't going anywhere, it's fine. The last question, I stopped learning how to read because my son feels it's against our religion and made me promise not to do it. Do you have anything that can help me explain that it is not against our beliefs? This is actually really common. People having like this moment where they're like coming into their spirituality, but then the people around them are like opposing forces, right? And what we have to realize is that it's not their fault. Society has created a narrative around this kind of spiritual practice. And that narrative is so deeply ingrained into the consciousness that there were women that got burned at stakes, and half of them weren't even witches. A lot of them just had different opinions, and then they were killed, right? So the concept of like tarot or even like witchcraft is so taboo in society and the collective consciousness that going the way of trying to convince somebody that it's fine or that there's not a problem with it is futile. You're not gonna win that, particularly if you're coming from a family where you go to church and you are religious in the way that you're observing your religion. There is no way to walk that back. There is not going to be a time where people understand what it is that you're doing. And in fact, the people around me didn't understand what I was doing until I started making money. And then they were like, oh, you're legit. And I was like, all right, enough. But it took other people, strangers, to validate me in the form of finances for the people around me to not be so hung up on what it was that I was doing. I had family members, because I remember very hard trying to put it away, keep it in the box, conceal it, not wanting people to be uncomfortable. And like when I would leave, they would go through my stuff and then they would find a deck of tarot cards and then be terrified. And in my mind, I was like, okay, but you did that to yourself. Like now you're scared, but you did it yourself. You didn't have to see tarot cards. I was trying to keep them out of your face, but then you were so nosy. Now here you are, afraid, right? Like there's just nothing that you can do about that. Unfortunately, the church and its system is more deeply ingrained into society, and the fear of not following the church is also really heavily deeply ingrained. That saying to somebody, oh, it's no big deal. It's not something that you can win. The best thing that you can do is simply is respect it. Just like how you want them to respect your practices, your beliefs, It's up to you to respect their practices and their belief. Because this is your child, I don't know if they live with you. If it is a situation where they live with you, you may want to be mindful about when you're practicing it and how you're practicing it. And I get that maybe there's an aspect of wanting to be open with it, because for you, it's not a big deal. You have to understand the fear of people who it is a big deal. I have to oftentimes reflect way back at a time when I used to think psychics were evil and mediums were of the devil. I think it's funny now because I ended up turning out being the exact thing that I was terrified of. But this exists in the psyche and the collective consciousness, and there's no way to convince somebody otherwise. Also, let's have a little bit of empathy for the fact that the world was just told that there were aliens. There's a lot going on with your son at one time. You know what I mean? There's no way you can change it. The only thing that you can do is accept it. Accept who you are, accept your practices, and accept that you are now the minority and that people won't get it. They're just not going to get it, honey. Sorry. Not sorry. So that's going to bring me to the end of the video. Your questions were great. I love it. I am working on something that I'm so excited about, and I can't wait until I can reveal it. There was a reason why I had asked you if you had any questions specifically related to tarot, and you guys will find that out soon enough. But if you have any questions about other things, or again, anything else that you want to talk about, drop it in the comments. I am reading all of the comments, and I'm actually making a list of all of them, and they're all in an order, and they will all be answered in a video in the order of which they are received. So if you have anything, just let me know. And as always, if you like what you see, please subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you soon.